On the inside, we have this formula, and this is actually the formula that is on your formula chart. Volume formula for a prism, where V is representing volume. Notice this is a big B again. We encountered big B when we did surface area. Big B stands for what? Very good. Area of the base shape. This is going to be height of the prism or pyramid. Okay, and remember this height right here, I'm going to put a little P and we're going to put a star. This is not on the base shape. Okay, just like when we were looking at it with pH, right? That H was the height of the prism. It was not on the base shape. So volume is essentially area of the base shape times the height. I know there's only one space there, but we're going to write height of prism. So all volume is area times height. That is it. So if I have my cup of water, I'm finding the area of my circle, which is my top or my bottom, times how tall my cup is. It is just area times height, which is why when you learned last year and the year before, length times width times height, look at how I wrote this out. Length times width was area of our rectangle, right? Times the height of that prism. So you've been doing this. The only difference is now you have this big B. So don't get super confused because we're still going to draw that base shape out. So here I want you to shade and label the bases. So what is the base on this picture? The triangles. And I'm just going to kind of color them with my pencil. If you have a color or a colored pencil or a highlighter, you can. And we're going to actually label those big B. Okay? Well, I want you to know those are your base shapes, right? So then your height is here. Remember, your height is not on that shape that you colored. So we could name this is a triangular prism, right? It is named after its base shape. We could do the same thing on the one on the bottom. This is the same shape. It's just drawn from a different angle. Kind of looks like a slice of cheese, where this one kind of looks like a tent, right? So this is our base shape, but now our height is vertical. You see it? Now when you do the rectangular prism, you can make any of these be your base shape. These are both triangular prisms. I'm not going to write it twice. You can have it be the side, it can be the top, the bottom, the front, or the back. I'm just going to color this bottom piece. But again, it doesn't actually matter. What matters is that if I'm going to call these my bases, that my height is not part of that. Do you see it? So this is a rectangular prism. And remember, we talked about the difference between prisms and pyramids. This has rectangular faces, making it a prism. And it has two bases, right? Whereas a pyramid, which we will get to pyramids and cones, has one base shape and triangular faces, okay? All right, so on this first example, go ahead. We always want to shade that base. I'm going to shade the bottom. You could definitely shade the side if you wanted. Because this one is kind of already colored, I'm going to use a pen to label. Here's my base shape. Yes? We could even label it up here if we wanted. So what does that mean for the 10? That is our height. It is not on the base shape. And yet, when we did surface area, we talked about draw that base shape out. So here are our steps so far. We shaded the base. And we labeled the height, okay? And we're going to draw big B separately. So I'm going to come over here, just a happy little rectangle. Apparently I can't draw a straight line today. Sorry about that. So this is a 5 by 6, and I will remind you that when we do all things in geometry, pictures may not be drawn to scale, okay? So just be aware of that. Don't go off the picture. You need to go off the measurement. So now, before we said P and big B from this shape, I only need big B here. What is big B? It is 30. So after we've done that, we can write our formula. We're going to plug in our numbers. That is a number sign, not a hashtag. And then we're going to solve with units, right? What are our units? Inches cubed. So here's my formula. V equals big BH. And then we already found big B, didn't we? What was big B? So we're going to say 30 times, what was our height? 10. We should not need our calculator for that. What is that? 300 what? Inches cubed. Okay? So not hard, right? And technically we did length times width times height, yes? Where our length times width was just our big B, right? Area of the base times the height. So could you, how many inches of sand would be needed if we only wanted 1/3 full? Are all of my dimensions changing by 1/3, Tyler? No, what is changing? The volume. Why is it only changing by 1/3 instead of 1/27? Remember when we did scale factor changes? No. What does it say? It's only 1/3 full. So is our base shape changing? No, what's changing? Only the height. The height is going to be 1/3. So the height is now 10/3. Yes? And I know that looks a little bit funky, but don't overthink it, right? We can still say B equals big BH. Big B did not change. Our base is still 30. Our height is 10/3. Well, can I put this as 30/1? What happens? Top times top, still 300 divided by 3. What do we get? 100 inches cubed. Now, if it said the whole prism is 1/3 the size, then you're using 1/3 on the 5, the 6, and the 10. Do you see that? All right. How do we feel about rectangular prisms? Pretty good? All right, let's turn the page because now comes your favorite. It is a triangular prism. So maybe you're going camping with your family and this is your tent. We need to know how much space is in that tent. What is my base shape? The triangle, right? I'm going to kind of color that in a little bit. I do have one at the back as well. Triangles we kind of are getting a little bit in trouble on because what are we forgetting? Divide by 2. So I've shaded my base. I've labeled it. I am going to draw that base shape separately. Now, we don't need to worry. Oh, I forgot to label my height. What number is my height? 3. My height of my prism. Right? This is my height of my triangle. So we're looking at that right angle. Here is 9. Here is 7.2. Guys, we're forgetting that divide by 2 piece. All right, my formula is big BH. Well, I got to find big B over here. How do I find area of a triangle? Base times height divided by 2. So what am I going to plug in? 7.2 times 9. Don't forget to divide by 2. You have a calculator. What do we get? 32.4. That actually represents what? That's the area. That's my big B. Yes? Anyone get lost there? So I can plug in 32.4 times, what was the height of my prism? And what do we get? Keep going, 97.2 cubed. All right, anyone have any questions? Yes. So keep in mind, essentially up here, remember volume, length times width times height. Guys, look at what we did. Length times width times height, and then because it's a triangle, divide by 2. So you could technically also do that. Length times width times height divided by 2. You're going to get the same thing. So what do we get down here? If it's 1/4 full, what's changing? Again, this is only the height of our prism is changing. Since it's only being applied to one dimension, you could technically take this 97.2 and what? And divide it by 4, right? And we get what? 24.3 meters cubed. All right, and that is volume. So I have a couple of I do, we do, you do practice problems, and they do get progressively harder. That is the second page you picked up when you came in. So let's have a little glance here. Guys, I do want to see that equation. I do want to see you shading your base, all of those things. So I'm going to do one of each of these, and then we'll go through and we'll do one together where you do it with your table. We'll check it, and then you can do. And the you do is going to be your practice for tonight. So this says the dimensions of an office space, cubic feet. How many cubic feet will it hold? Well, again, this is big B, H. Area of the base. Where is my base shape? Let's color it in. It's the what? It's the floor, right? Here's my base shape. That makes this my height. So if I'm gonna draw it, guys, I want you to draw it, and you can write your big B in the inside. So this is a 25 by 32. What is my big B? How are we gonna get that? Yeah, we're just gonna multiply that, and we're gonna say 25 times 32. We get 800 square feet. So I know. So big B is 800. What was my height of my office space? 12. So 800 times 12 is what? 96. 9,600. And now we have what? Feet cubed. Okay, so again, it's still length times width times height. That's all we're doing. The triangle ones are the ones that tend to get us in the most trouble. Again, notice here, you've got your height is drawn at the back, right? Here's my base. It says, now this one's tricky. The tent shown has a volume, so now we have a volume. How long is the tent? We're looking for the height. We're still going to have V equals big BH. But can we find big B here? Here's my base shape. I'm going to draw it separately. What do we have to remember to do? Divide by 2. So big B is 6 times 8 divided by 2. What do we get? 24. So I'm going to plug in what I know. My volume is 240. Big B is 24 times my height. Well, what do we need to do to solve this equation? Divide 240 by 24, and we get the height equals 10 just feet, because it's only 1 unit, right? If we're looking for the volume, then it's cubed. If it's just a length, a width, a height, just the units. All right, then this one is kind of like the one we were doing before. Tim poured vegetable broth into a container. It is now 2/3 full. How many cubic inches are in the container? So what is this changing? If it's changing, it's 2/3 full. Here's my base. Is this changing? It's changing the height. So we're going to say 10 times 2/3. It's getting bigger or smaller? smaller. So our formula, big BH. Here's my base shape. I'm going to draw it over here, and then we can write it there. What are my dimensions on my base shape? 6 and 12. So I'm going to say 6 times 12. Is that how I'm going to get my area of my face? Good. Divide by 2. It's a triangle. Starts with a T. So we get 36. So now I have V equals big BH. So I have my big B is 36. What's my height? I need to do 10 over 1 times 2 over 3. Can I put that in my calculator, all 3 of those? Yes. We can come over here and we can say 36 times 10 times, how do I make a fraction? Do you remember? Good. Control divide 2 over 3. Does that not look like this? You could put the 10 over 1 or you just put 10. And we get 240. Volume equals 240 what? Inches cubed. All right, how do we feel about this right now? Okay, so I know it says we do and you do. So here's the deal. I want you to do this we do column with your table, and then I'm going to put the answers up there. And then the you do is your try assignment for tonight, and we'll see how you did. If you do really good on the you do, we'll take it as an easy grade, and if you don't, we won't. Deal? All right, show me how awesome you are.